Emotional fitness has always been a big focus for us, and as you've just heard, we're going to be taking it to a whole new level this season.
Helping us do that is our inner world guide, Michele Bernhardt, who in the past few months has traveled many thousands of miles with us, exploring the topic of trauma as a portal to transformation.
Thank you, Judy and Roy. It's been a truly eye-opening journey, and as you said before, we have some very good news to pass along. Information that could be life-changing for some of our viewers. We have found that trauma, whether big or seemingly small, doesn't have to be an awful wound that continues hurting us for years and years, even after the event. In fact, it's possible to heal from trauma in a way that makes us more resilient, more compassionate, more powerful, and more emotionally fit. So let's start by finding out more about what this thing called trauma really is.
Trauma means injury. That's what the word means. So it's an injury to the body, to the mind, to the spirit.
Dr. James Gordon is the founder of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine in Washington, D.C. He's also a professor at Georgetown University Medical School and former chairman of the White House Commission on Complementary and Alternative Medicine. He's treated returning U.S. military personnel from Iraq and Afghanistan, along with trauma survivors in Bosnia, Kosovo, Israel, Gaza, Haiti, and both post-9/11 in New York and post-Katrina in Louisiana.
I think everybody on the planet experiences trauma of one kind or another. The problem with trauma is not that we experience it, it's that we keep on experiencing it, experiencing it.
One of the more interesting symptoms with trauma is the fear of reoccurrence.
Reoccurring trauma is something that psychotherapist David Grand knows a lot about.
This is a rock from Ground Zero, from the Trade Center.
He's developed a technique called Brainspotting to help release trauma and pain from the brain. It's been used to treat survivors of 9/11, the Sandy Hook shooting, and Hurricane Katrina.
Trauma is a totally unusual experience that happens to a person that overwhelms their nervous system and its capacity to process the experience. And pieces of that experience are left unprocessed, frozen behind in the brain. And anytime the flow of energy goes through those areas, the person will experience what we call trauma symptoms.
Trauma is part of the human journey. It's not like you made a mistake if it happens in your life.
Diane Poole Heller is an expert in dealing with that part of the human journey. Her book, Crash Course, is widely used as a guide to healing auto accident trauma.
If you're on this planet long enough, something's going to happen, whether it's a medical issue, a natural disaster, a car accident, a relationship breakup, or a loss of a loved one. There's just no way around it. So it's really important that we don't see ourselves as the cause of that.
Psychiatrist Mark Epstein agrees. He's written a book called The Trauma of Everyday Life. A big part of his book's message is that trauma doesn't just happen to a few unlucky people, but that we are all touched by it in some way, and how it can be used as a lever for growth.
We do ourselves a disservice to push the uncomfortable feelings about it away. My point in the book is that there's something transformational about facing the feelings directly.
Francine Shapiro has developed a technique to help address those feelings directly. It's called EMDR, and it uses eye movements to release negative memories and emotions. It's now recommended as an effective treatment for trauma by the American Psychiatric Association and by the Departments of Defense and Veterans Affairs.
Life experiences, general life experiences, can cause even more trauma symptoms than major trauma. Have as much compassion for yourself as you would for a rape victim, for a combat veteran, because you're really going through a type of pain that's being caused by the same unprocessed memory storage.
Trauma and life experiences, they're one and the same, but they are the commonality that we all have in our human experience.
Regina K. Scully is the founder and CEO of the Artemis Rising Foundation, which is dedicated to media, education, and healing projects that transform our culture. Ms. Scully has produced numerous documentaries, including the Emmy and Academy Award-nominated Invisible War film about the epidemic of rapes in the U.S. military. misrepresentation about the issue of gender bias in the U.S., fed up about the epidemic of obesity and diabetes in our country, alive inside about a music-based breakthrough that's transforming those dealing with dementia, and the Emmy-nominated Brave Miss World about the journey of a beauty pageant winner to world activist. One key focus for her is increasing our understanding about trauma as a portal to transformation.
Nobody gets to live a life free of going through something that's going to rock their foundation at some point in time in their life. Instead of destroying you, it could actually be the thing that completely rebuilds you and lifts you up to a whole other level of living life.
I love Regina's positive attitude, but I bet we have some viewers out there who might be thinking, you know, that's a lot easier said than done when it comes to transforming trauma into something positive.
You're absolutely right. It is easier said than done, but we do have some helpful news for those viewers. The experts in this field have made major advances in understanding how we actually process trauma.
And those advances have resulted in some new healing techniques.
Yes, in fact, many of those new therapies are based on the realization that trauma is a physical as well as an emotional event.
Trauma is something that happens not just in the mind, not just in the brain, but in the body.
Peter Levine is an expert on stress and trauma and was a consultant for NASA during development of the space shuttle. He's the developer of a widely used technique called somatic experiencing, designed to help the body release trauma trapped inside it.
I want you to say, I'm alive. When we experience that we're threatened, our body tightens, we stiffen, we retract. And the thing that has not been realized, not well understood, is that the body holds those patterns of tension or collapse and helplessness. And until we change the experience in the body keeps telling the mind that there's threat.
A lot of people go through life feeling anxious or that there's something wrong with them. I'm not good enough, I'm shameful, I'm powerless, I'm helpless, all of these feelings that come up. And they just have been there for so long they think it's normal. And the reason that things are that way is actually a physical problem, the same way as breaking your leg. It's simply the way the memory is stored in the brain, and we have ways of handling it.
Until about 20, 30 years ago, we thought that the brain was fixed. But we've discovered that the brain is not fixed at all. In fact, the brain changes throughout life. And the brain can change itself. That's called neuroplasticity, the changing of the brain. When you have trauma, there is a stuckness to where the trauma is held in the brain. But when trauma healing comes about, there is a neoplastic change that occurs within the brain, where the brain literally changes. And the neural pathways, instead of going down those same traumatic pathways, starts to go down new pathways that recognize that the trauma is over, that the person has survived, and that they've healed. And actually, when the brain changes neuroplastically, it not only recovers, but it learns. And the trauma, instead of being a block, becomes part of their experience, something that informs them about what can happen in life and how we can recover in life.
One of the amazing things about being able to really work with trauma successfully, to transform trauma, is that every time we do that, we become stronger, we become more resilient human beings. And that's part of the magic of transforming trauma.
I think that one of the greatest gifts we have, all of us together, is that we are all on the same, I call it the wheel of trauma transformation. We're all on it. And that's a very comforting feeling, that I'm no different from you, you're no different from me. We're all on the same wheel, we're just on it in different places. And I may be going through something that puts me on the wheel here in a more acute state, and maybe you're over here on the wheel of trauma transformation, but we're all on it together. And the beautiful thing about it is, if we can address it and tackle it and look at it in a very honest way and try to heal each other and ourselves, we can move on that wheel. None of us are permanently stuck somewhere on the wheel.
Great information, Michele. I especially like what Regina said, as well as Mark Epstein, about looking at trauma honestly and not pushing it away or trying to ignore it.
That's an excellent point. I think it's very important not to underestimate or belittle a traumatic experience, since it's the recognition of the trauma and how big it is that is the first step in the healing process.
So true. And so we've assembled a world-class panel of experts to help us improve our emotional health, and we're going to get great information from them in the weeks ahead.
But right now, we can't resist passing along one tip I think we're all going to like. It comes from Diane Heller, who we met earlier in today's show. As you may recall, Diane's an expert in trauma resolution and integrative healing, and we love one of her prescriptions for helping us all be happier.
Play, actually, is one of the most important things. We all need to play more. Playfulness takes us back to secure attachment, even if we didn't have it in the beginning as adults. One of the best things couples can do is play. We don't play enough in our culture. We're workers, you know. Absolutely. We need to play a lot more. So my homework assignment for everyone is to play, play, play. My permission, doctor's orders, play, play, play.
What great advice. You know, in our culture, most of us focus most of our energy on our work. Although that's really important, it needs to be balanced by lots of play.
Absolutely. It's interesting how play really refreshes our spirit and connects us to what we really love to do. And that in itself is what I think is healing.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, Judy, so tonight we'll go out salsa dancing. That should be fun.
It'll be fun. Will you teach me a few steps?
Absolutely.
That sounds like fun. But before I go, Roy and I have a few more things we need to share with our viewers. First, we're going to see what healthy treat Sarah Snow, our fabulous Fresh Living chef, is whipping up in the kitchen. It might even be playful. And later we'll meet one of the world's best nature photographers who's going to be sharing his fantastic footage this season with us in our Healing Moments.